Our final briefer is Gili Roman. His family members were kidnapped on October 7th. Mr. Roman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador, for leading and making this meeting happen. Thank you for the German mission and all the other co-sponsors, and thank all of you for coming. Today, we are marking the 30th birthday of Carmel Gat, my family member, who is held hostage for 223 days in Gaza. Carmel is a yogist, a therapist, and a peace activist who was brutally abducted from the house of her parents in Kibbutz Be'eri alongside other family members. The Hamas terrorists who infiltrated the house firstly took Kinneret, Carmel's mother, which was murdered alongside other civilians outside of the family home, as we found out by a video Hamas released on social media. After Kinneret, they took Carmel and still holding her as a hostage. And after Carmel, they separately took Alon, Carmel's brother, Yarden, his wife, my sister, and their 3-year-old daughter, Geffen. They shoved them into a vehicle, took the neighbor, Tal Shoham, who is, as you heard, still a hostage as well, put them in the trunk of the car, and started to fastly drive in towards Gaza, just a few kilometers from the kibbutz. Just a few meters before crossing to Gaza, the terrorists noticed an Israeli tank and started to flee the car while instructing the driver to keep on moving with the hostages inside Gaza. At this moment, Yarden and Alon decided they're going to escape. Yarden, who was holding Geffen in her arms, and Alon, who was handcuffed nearby her, jumped off the moving car and started running for their lives. After a few moments, the terrorists noticed them and started to chase them while shooting at them. And when they tried to find a shelter and stopped, Yarden realized that she cannot both keep her daughter and save her daughter's lives. And she had to make a life or death decision and separate from her daughter. She handed Geffen to Alon and told him, run, which he did. He ran really fast and found a ditch where they were hiding for more than 8 hours without food, water, in complete silence with a 3-year-old. Alon reached Kibbutz Be'eri in the morning after walking with Geffen through the whole night in the battlefield. And he called us and said, I'm alive. Geffen is alive and she's with me. I don't know where your sister is. The last thing that he saw is Yarden stopping, putting her hands over her head, trying to shelter her body from the bullets. And that moment, I took the car and went directly to Be'eri, to the battlefield, to search for my sister. I was there for the first week of the war with our troops who risked their life in order to find her. I witnessed with my own eyes what happened in the battlefield and also what happened inside of Kibbutz Be'eri, the horrible massacre. It took days to liberate this kibbutz and the area. Yarden was released after 54 days, and she describes captivity as ripping you out of your humanity, being degraded into a card in a pile of cards of negotiation, being objected and subjected to the will of 3 armed terrorists that was holding her by herself in a family civil home, being directed and controlled every single moment. She was a card, a means towards an end, and they repeatedly told her what the end is. She was there, as they told her, for the global jihad, not for Gaza, not for Israel or Palestine, for a global Muslim empire. And she is part of the first step. We know little about Carmel's situation. We have heard from 2 teenagers that were held with her about harsh, violent, even abusive captivity. But we also learned about her resilience when they told us she taught them yoga and meditation in order to keep their mental health. But since then, we don't know about Carmel's situation. Today, we don't know if she's alive or dead. We hope she is alive, but we don't know. We don't know if she's fed or starving. We hope that she's fed, but we do not know. We don't know if she's molested, abused, or intact. We hope, of course, she's intact, but we honestly don't know. We don't know when Carmel and the other hostages will come back to us. Since the headline of this discussion is psychological impacts of terrorism, I want to share my perspective. And to start with a perspective of a 4-year-old, Geffen, my niece. Geffen is among the youngest survivors of October 7th. She was kidnapped, rescued by the bravery of her parents. She waited for months for the release of her mother. She's still waiting for the release of her aunt. And her mother-in-law and her grandmother was murdered outside of the house. I sat for a conversation with Geffen on a balcony a few months ago. And she told me, Gili, I'm missing my grandmothers. My mother has died also about a year ago, and Geffen lost 2 of her grandmothers in less than a year. And she told me, you know, I understand why grandmother Orly died, my mom. She was severely ill, and we visited her at the hospital. Everybody tried to help her, but she was too sick. So I understand. But I do not understand why grandmother Kinneret died. It just doesn't make sense. Geffen has to make a new realization of the world. She has to make sense of what is going on. And if you ever met a young child, you probably know that they're extremely adaptive people. And what Geffen is doing, she normalizes everything that happens. So if you see her play, you will see that sometimes the play is moving to a new apartment, and sometimes the play is hiding beneath the bed because the bad guys are coming to take you. Sometimes the dolls are making breakfast, and sometimes the dolls are searching for mom who is missing. For Geffen, life are sometimes people are missing and you're waiting for them to come back. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes people are being murdered, taken outside of their house. And I think that we need to stop and ask ourselves, who has a better perception of our current reality? We, the grown-ups, who see these scenarios as extremely abnormal, or a 4-year-old survivor who normalizes them? If judging by the fact that some prominent world leaders were so quick to contextualize and normalize what happened on October 7th, or by the fact that global organizations said so little and did nothing for the hostages, or by the fact that there are no clear resolutions and acts by this House to make the hostages release sooner. And this is the first time the Security Council is dedicating a discussion for them. By the fact that we can get so little attention for their issue, and their posters are still being ripped out and sometimes replaced by pictures of cows on the streets around the world. But just the fact that they are still in Gaza being held. If judging by all these, maybe we have to conclude that a 4-year-old has a better perception of our current reality than we do. I want to add also my perspective as an educator who taught the foundation and the breakthrough of creating the League of Nations after World War I, and the importance of the foundation of creating the UN after World War II. As someone who insisted on teaching more peace agreements and diplomacy than wars and battles, and as someone who was the head of an international school for peace with Jews, Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, Palestinians, and Israelis, my expertise is liberal and peace education. And when we try to convey this education, what we are doing is exposing the students to ideas like coexistence, compromise, and nonviolent solutions, and try to help them encapsulate all of them into a hope that moderation can work, a hope that our global order can work. And this is exactly the main thing which is under attack when we are talking about psychological terror. Because what terrorists like Yahya Sinwar or Osama bin Laden are doing, they are infiltrating our systems, manipulating and exploiting the rules and values that we live by in order to hijack this hope and replace it by a destructive hope for chaos. They try to make us stop trusting solutions which are based on peaceful ideas, on compromise, and start to adhere to what we hear on this street, that there is only one solution: intifada, revolution, which means a violent overtake and changing a world order to be based on different values and different foundations than the ones that we worked so hard for decades, if not centuries, to build our world upon. I know this process of losing hope as an Israeli since childhood. I was devoted since I was a small child to advocating and convincing people to try to go and make agreements and compromises and diplomatic solutions. And every time we got to a breakthrough and we got enough people to agree to these kind of acts, it literally exploded in our faces. And as I grew up, we managed to do it over and over again, and our hopes were shattered over and over again. And our society in my region became more extreme and less hopeful that constructive hope can work, and start to adhere to a destructive hope instead. And this is not only an Israeli problem. I'm walking around the world a lot since October 7th, and I'm meeting also your citizens in Amsterdam, in London, here in New York. And when they hear that we are families of hostages, they have a terrifying look in their eyes. I met a guy in Los Angeles a few months ago, and when he heard about our story, he looked at me and he said, "Please tell me you are winning this. Please tell me you are bringing them back home." And I said, "I cannot really promise that I really want to. But why are you so startled?" And he said, "You are a sovereign Western country, and you cannot protect your own people. You cannot bring your people back home. What does it say about me? What does it say about my children?" I think that we are failing these people, and I think that we are losing these people. They are losing hope, and they might replace it with a destructive hope, and we're starting to see it all over the world. My role in life is to convince people and educate people to adhere to our values, and to hold on, like I'm holding on to this constructive hope, to a moderate hope with my fingernails. But I cannot do it without you. It's your responsibility to make people trust our world order, to regain trust that things can be solved in the manner that this house is responsible of. So I'm asking you, please step up. Please rise up and do more. We need more affirmative actions, more clear statements, because we need to gain back the trust of everyone, and it starts with our ability to bring back the hostages. And I will finish with a small anecdote. And the night before I came here, Yarden, my sister, came to say goodnight to me. And I told her very instinctively, and she told me, we will wait for you at home. And instinctively I told her, please wait for me at home. And her reply was, I cannot promise what cannot be promised. So I'm asking you today, please, let's make this promise that our loved ones will safely wait for us at home a realistic promise once again. And thank you very much.
Gili, thank you so much for